All right. Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Michelle Gribble-Dates with beumbrella.com, and I just want to start by welcoming you all to this workshop. Today, we had a great group of people register for this webinar. It's the first time that I've ever done it on New Year's Day. I was a little hesitant because I'm on vacation with my family. I've been playing around the pool with my two kids, and they just went out on the boat with my brother, and so I came inside to the cabin to lead this workshop, and then gonna go get on the boat with them. They're gonna come pick me up afterwards. But I'm really, really grateful that I decided to do this, and grateful for the response that I got. So lots of people who registered, some of which are live now, some of which are going to be going through the recording later. And what that really communicates to me is that we desire to be on a growth path, to grow and to up level, to honor this most important day, this day of transition, to refine and to improve the experience that we're having in our bodies, in our physical bodies, our mental bodies, our emotional bodies, and to increase the impact that we're having. So real quick, for those of you who don't know me, again, my name is Michelle, and I run beumbrella.com. That's spelled BEOMBRELLA. You can check that out and find out about different courses that I offer. The Fruitful Living course, it's a 12-week habit change course. There's a 2-week seasonal detox that I lead a couple times a year, and some other projects I work on related to kids yoga and labyrinths and all sorts of good stuff. So there are a few days throughout the year that are particularly important to take pause. Okay, days which, if we pause and reflect and then look forward and make resolutions or goals, are particularly powerful. And one of those days for us, at least in the United States, is today. It's January 1st, or New Year's Day. And the reason today is such a powerful day to initiate something new is because it's a transition from one year to the next. Other prime times to do a workshop like this might be your birthday, or the summer solstice, or the winter solstice, or the equinoxes, or anytime you have a big transition happen in your personal life, whether it's a big move or a change in jobs or getting married or becoming an empty nester. These are all really powerful times to do a workshop like this. And afterwards, I'm going to email the recording to all of you, so you'll have access to it and you can do it again whenever you would like to. So it's important for those of us who are intentional about being on a growth path, about continuing to feel better and not worse in our bodies as we age, about being more useful for society and contributing more to the greater good and not less as we age, that we slow down this time of year and we tune in. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to slow down and we're going to tune in, and we're going to see too about how we can make a specific practice to solidify who we are becoming. And so the first thing that we're going to talk about today is this word dharma. It's spelled D-H-A-R-M-A. And dharma is essentially your purpose or your calling, okay? It's all about what we want to make happen in our personal lives and in the world in our lifetime. And this time of year again, it's not only the perfect time to presence where we're headed, to get more intentional with where we're headed and with who we want to be because of New Year's, but also because, we are within just a couple weeks of the winter solstice and multiple holidays which are rooted in transformation and new beginnings. So I just want to congratulate and say thank you and honor each one of you who are taking this time and this opportunity to do this important work today. Speaking of holidays, I want to specify that in the Christian communities that I'm a part of, we talk about call, like God's call. And in the yogic communities, we talk about dharma. So both of these terms are about aligned action. So aligned action, those two words, that's how I understand call. That's how I understand dharma. And I'm going to invite you now to craft a definition of dharma or call. What words or phrases do you use to define these concepts? So if you've got something to write with and you got something to write on, you should have that for this workshop, definitely. And it can be your computer if you would rather use your computer. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about this concept, and I want you to be thinking in the back of your mind, how would I define dharma? Or what is my definition of call? And to be writing that. And if you do that, you're going to get a lot more traction with this workshop. So if we look at your dharma or your call, whether that call is from God or source, if we look at it as aligned action, then it invites growth. And I think in the past, when people explored their purpose in life, okay, it was what it was, and it didn't change much. There was a real repetitive nature to it. And today, there's more of an evolving nature to it. Who we are and what we can do has a much more evolutionary orientation now than in the past, okay? Things change really fast today, right? Our roles change quickly. Technology changes quickly. We're able to connect with people across many, many miles much more quickly. We're able to gather together with people in large groups more quickly. And just as there's this external technology that helps us do that, phones, apps, planes, there's also an internal technology. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this before we get into our writing practice. That internal technology, we'll call it, is inviting us into dynamic change also. So as we look into 2019 and who we desire to become, we can sense our call as part of that, our purpose or our dharma. And I'm talking very broadly here. Everything from what kind of immune system do I desire to have? How do I desire my body to function and to feel? To how am I going to serve the world this year? Based on those dharmic pursuits, then we can get into, okay, what are the skills that I'm acquiring and the action steps that I'm taking to make that happen? So I'm going to encourage us all to stay tapped into this sense of dynamic change that is involved in our purpose or our pursuit to become more aligned. That way, all that we've been before, we can now, that can become distilled and refined And that will allow us to step into our next alignment in every area of life. Okay, we know that the universe is dynamic, right? That it's expanding. And also that each one of us is part of the universe. And so therefore, each one of us is dynamic. Okay? That's a basic principle of Dharma. And that's why we want to take time regularly to pause in the midst of all this expansion and to presence the new alignment for our lives. Just by presencing our purpose, we can invite in a reconfiguration of who we are becoming, right? So if we pause and we look at everything we've known, everything from 2018 and farther back, when we look at the cause and the effect of our actions from the past year, when we look at our thoughts and our relationships, everything then has the opportunity to reconfigure at the next higher level. And then that allows us to be able to grow in our actions, in our thoughts, in our relationships, in everything that's coming in this new year. Now, for this to happen, for us to live into our potentiality to up level, right? Our skills, we have to reflect first. And then after we reflect, we can take a step forward. And in taking that step forward, our skills, they must evolve. And our habits and our rituals, they must improve. And so part of our intention in taking pause today is to identify what new skills and habits and relationship agreements do we need. We might need to renew some relationships. We might need to generate some new relationships in order to make this phase of our next purpose possible. Okay, same with our daily rituals. There are rituals or habits that we already have that are well suited for us living into the next phase of our life. And there are also new rituals that we have to acquire. So in a moment, we're going to go through a process of getting clear on who we want to become. And then I'll teach you a really specific practice, something that you can do 10 minutes a day, all year long, to continue the pursuit of consciously upgrading your vision and upgrading your rituals and your relationships. Before we begin that, I want to say that this process has to do with signifying that which is most important and being reminded that we are more a verb than a noun. You are more a verb than a noun. I am more of a verb than a noun. And it also has to do with understanding that in some ways, we need to sacrifice who we were before in order for the next better version of ourselves to come forward. Okay, it's about acting in deepest alignment, not just with ourselves, but with everything, with the entire universe. So this is a really big deal. And so again, I'm going to welcome you. We've had some more people join since we started. So welcome. I'm really excited to be pausing and realigning with each of you today. All right, so you've got something to write with, something to write on. I want you to put down on paper, if you haven't yet, what Dharma or call means to you. What words would you use to describe living with purpose or living on purpose? I defined it as aligned action. What definition resonates with you? And again, for those of you who have joined us in the last few minutes, if you want to use your computer to record things for yourself during this workshop, feel free to do that. And if at any point you want to update your definition throughout the workshop, please feel free to do so as it suits your needs. Okay. We're going to consider a little more this concept of dynamic nature, of our purpose being a part of dynamic nature, and then we'll get into our writing exercise. So I want you to root this more in your own experience. So I'll tell you a little bit about my experience, and maybe that will trigger something from your own life. So I first learned the word call from going to Presbyterian churches. And I learned about the concept of Dharma at yoga studios. And it was a real, very similar timing. And I immediately saw the parallel between the two. So I want you to take a moment and remember when you became aware of the concept of call, or that word dharma, or purpose. For me, at first, these concepts, honestly, they seemed kind of stagnant or static. It was like, there was this one life purpose that I was supposed to discover or discern, as we like to say in Christian circles. And then once I discovered it, I was supposed to do it. And maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you've had a similar experience, a similar teaching where there's this purpose and you find out what that purpose is and then you go do it. Right? You graduate high school and you're supposed to know exactly what you want to do so you can choose what to major in college. And then, times are definitely changing around this, but you still hear older people asking younger people, so what are you going to do? The implication is that it's for life. When they ask that question, the implication is, what are you going to do for the rest of your life with that college degree? Which, if we remember that nature is dynamic, that it's always expanding, and that we're part of nature, then really that question is a life sentence. Okay, to answer that question is a life sentence. So in my life experience, I have not found that definition particularly helpful. And in fact, I'd say that I find it quite limiting. Instead, what I find helpful is continually revisiting this aligned action. Not every day, and that's a growing edge for me, to not revisit it so often, but periodically. And so maybe doing the exercise that we're about to do a few times a year. As I mentioned earlier, some good times are your birthday, around solstice or equinox, or any big life change. For me, I do a practice, I do this one or something similar to this 3 times a year. And I always do it at the beginning of every round of Fruitful Living. For those of you who aren't familiar with Fruitful Living, it's a 12-week health coaching course that I lead to help people shift their lifestyle habits or rituals. And so 3 times a year, I do a deep practice like this one. And I lead the Fruitful Living course members through similar exercises 3 times a year to reflect the presence, who they are becoming, and to put the action steps in place for that to happen. When we see our Dharma, or what we are being called to, when we see this thing as a moving target, then we allow for a much quicker reinvention of ourselves in alignment with what's needed next, okay, with where we can have the greatest impact, with where we can learn and grow and accelerate change. And also where we can align our body and the needs of our mental, emotional, physical body with who we're becoming in terms of our service in the world. Okay, so it's all part of the same thing, right? Because if we're moving forward with our career, let's say, or our civic duty, if we're doing a great deal of service to others, but we're depleting ourselves, if our energy is low, if we're relying on caffeine, if we have difficulty with getting enough sound quality sleep, that's not good, right? That's not what we want. Okay, we can't burn out our bodies in pursuit of a career or in pursuit of raising children or whatever it is. So we're going to move through a 3-step process now. First, we need a vision. We need a really clear vision. Second, we need really clear action steps to realize the vision. And then third, we need to upgrade our relationships or the agreements within our relationships. We may even need to develop new relationships or step into supportive groups, which help us with the vision and the steps to achieving that vision. So pretty simple formula. Identify your vision, upgrade your daily rituals in line with that vision, upgrade your relationships in line with that vision. And doing this process itself, just showing up today and doing this process, is a habit or a ritual. And most people aren't willing to do this. Okay, for most people don't grow up doing this. I didn't. And because of that, they don't do it later in life. You know, my guess is that if I took a poll of everyone right now, if I asked you, you know, who had a hard time developing a home yoga practice? Or who had a hard time developing a home meditation practice? Probably everyone's hands would raise. Who was it a breeze for? Who wanted to develop a home practice and bam, the next day it was set and you never failed? Probably no one's hands would be raised. Most people would say it was a challenge, or it's a challenge in my life right now, or it was a challenge and I gave up. Often it's easier to develop a ritual when the people around you practice that ritual. Okay, so let's say all of your loved ones meditate. Everyone in your immediate circle meditates except you, and you decide you want to. Is that going to be hard? No, it's not. It's going to be pretty easy. But if no one in your life meditates, then it's going to be a lot harder. And so this is where upgrading our relationships really comes into play. For whatever rituals you decide you need to be practicing in order to achieve the vision you desire, you may find that you have a difficult time finding people in your location that can help you with that. So you may need to reach out online to teachers and to communities of people to cultivate the relationships that you need. This is something that I've been doing over the last 2 weeks. I've been online almost every day looking for a business coach and some other communities that I need to plug myself into that I don't have right around me. So what we're going to do now is get clear on who we are becoming and then the action steps that are needed to step into that. And then we'll look at the relationships necessary to support who we're becoming. So for this first part, I'm going to invite you to just come into a comfortable but attentive position. And you can do this sitting down or standing up. But make sure that the spine is upright. The shoulders are melting down the back. And if it would serve you, go ahead and close the eyes. Begin by lengthening out the exhalation. Invite you to start taking deeper, more conscious breaths with an emphasis on the exhale. Your job right now is simply to make space. Really feel the length between the crown of your head and your sits bones. And now, as you inhale, let the spine become a little longer. Just let the breath allow the crown of the head to grow up taller and the sits bones to ground down deeper. Allowing that space in between to become clean and clear and expansive. Keep breathing. And see if you can let go. So this is part of being on the altar, so to speak, of your own growth. Letting go of your emotional patterning, of whatever phase of life you're in right now. Just let all of that dissipate into the space that is holding you. As you breathe, continue to wipe the slate clean. If there's any tension in your body, allow it also to go into the space around you. And now I invite you to trust in the clearing, to trust that it's working, that you're doing what you need to be doing, that you're not doing it wrong, that the breath knows what to do. Just trust. Trust that all of your life experiences have led you to this moment, and that this is exactly where you belong. And now in this clearing, in this reconfiguring, knowing that you are exactly where you belong, trust that what's most useful will rise to the top. You don't need to do that. Just knowing that it will be done for you. Now allow your breath to return to normal. You may be feeling a more expanded inner space or a deeper, more calm version of yourself. So I'll invite you to maybe do some shoulder rolls or twist side to side. Bring a little gentle movement back into the body. And we'll move into our practice. This is a practice that you can do every day. And the invitation is to do it every morning. And to just begin with a simple breath clearing like we just did. And then the second part is to write. And you can do this, again, with pen and paper, or you can do it on your computer if you prefer. If you don't have somewhere to write right now, maybe because you're driving, then just say your answers out loud. Verbalize them into the space that you're in. Maybe you could dictate them into your phone. And so I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you're going to journal for each question, just stream of thought. And then after we complete the journaling part of the practice, you're going to write one specific and small action to take on that which you've written about, okay? The action has to take less than 5 minutes to accomplish. And I'll remind you of this all as we move through, so you don't have to worry about remembering it. So the first question that you are going to journal on, just stream of consciousness, and I'm going to give you, you're going to have about 90 seconds to journal on each question. Maybe, let's see here. No, you'll have two minutes. We'll have 2 minutes to journal on each question. So the first question is, who am I in the next phase of my life? So take a moment, we're gonna take 2 minutes to answer that question. Don't screen your thoughts, just let the pen flow. Again, don't filter yourself. The answer to this question might have many different elements. You might write about things that pertain to your body, your career, how you feel in your mind and your emotions. Couple more seconds. Okay, and now you're gonna write one action step that you can do in less than 5 minutes related to whatever you wrote down for this first question. Now, it's not something that you're gonna go do right now. You don't need to be able to do it right now. We're simply practicing building new habits. So what is one action that takes less than 10 minutes that is in alignment with who you are becoming in this next phase of your life? So one action step that would take less than 5 minutes that's in alignment with the answer to the question of, who am I in the next phase of my life? Okay, the second question is, what habits or rituals do I cultivate to become the person I envision? What habits or what rituals am I cultivating, or do I need to cultivate to become the person I envision? And again, just start writing stream of thought. Okay, now go ahead and write down one small specific action that takes less than 5 minutes that you could do in order to develop a ritual to cultivate the person you are becoming. And I'm going to start typing over in the chat box our list of questions. So right now, writing down one small specific action that would take you less than 5 minutes that you could do in order to develop a ritual or a habit that aligns with the person you envision yourself becoming in 2019. Question 3 is, what relationships do I need to cultivate in order to become the person I am becoming? What relationships do I need to cultivate in order to become the person I am becoming? And I just put it over in the chat. So go ahead and start writing. And now go ahead and write one small specific action that takes less than 5 minutes that will help you evolve your relationships. And just as a quick reminder, the action should be very specific. And it should also be, a feeling of desire. Okay? It shouldn't be hard. It should be fun. You should not hardly be able to wait to take this next action. You should be drawn to doing it. Okay, so make sure that your actions are specific, and that when you write it down, you feel a yes within you. All right, so far we've answered 3 questions. Who am I in this next phase of my life? What rituals do I need to cultivate to become the person I envision? And 3, what relationships do I need to cultivate in order to execute this plan? Those 3 are the most crucial. There are 12 questions total. And with these 12 questions, you could focus on one a month. That's one way that I've helped people use this process before, and that I've used this. Sometimes people find that focusing on one question for an entire month really helps them to anchor themselves in that question. But these first 3 questions, you want to be revisiting again and again and again. Who am I, what rituals, and what relationships? Okay, those three are the fast track. This is really the fast track of living in sync with Dharma, with call, with purpose, to living in a context where you're not as tied to past versions of yourself. Okay, this is super aligned, dynamic action. So that's what's been my experience, and that's been the experience of many of my current teachers, as well as the experience of clients that I have helped with this. So those three questions, again, those are the game changers. They're the ones that really make the biggest difference. The next 8 questions, in many ways, they're sort of like twists and turns and evolutions in different ways of accessing different parts of knowing within yourself. So they really help create more clarity. So we're going to go into these questions now, and then I will wrap up with basically sharing how you can use this practice in a very distilled day-to-day way, and then we'll make time for questions and for comments. So question number 4 is, how will I feel in the next phase of my life? How will I feel, or how do I feel in the next phase of my life? And so because this question is all about feeling, you may want to just drop in right now to what your next level of feeling is. Maybe you ask your body how it wants to feel moving forward, and then start writing. Your response to this question could be, it could have a lot to do with how you feel in your physical body, but it might have a lot to do with how you feel in your emotions. So the person you are becoming next, what does that person feel like? Physically, mentally, emotionally, relationally, spiritually? And then go ahead and write one small specific action step that you can take to feel more of this on this very day. The action step can be as small as simply letting yourself sit for a moment and feel whatever it is that you wrote about. That can be how small the action step is. But before we move on to the next question, I want to go a little deeper into this question that we just explored of how do I feel? there's a way to know as we're stepping deeper into our next better self, or stepping into the next level of what we've been called to, our next purpose, if we're on track, in that we'll feel how we just wrote. And it can also feel scary, and it can feel really, really big, maybe even too big. And in some ways, it can feel like the opposite. But when it's time to make a decision, if we just pause and relax and ask the question about the decision you're making, should I do this or should I do that? And then see which answer makes us feel like what you just wrote. So you can use the response to that question, whatever you just wrote down for question 4, you can use it as sort of a radar, sort of a detector, like a discernment detector. Okay. We can use question 4 as a discernment detector, we'll call it. Another way to use this question is to simply commit to feel like what you just wrote down, and then you become that. So you might do that as part of your morning practice or as part of your right before bed practice. Just let yourself feel that which you just wrote down. You just start to train your nervous system. You train yourself to feel what you wrote down. Okay, the feeling will then start to change the thought pattern and the actions so that you can go in the direction of it. All right, question 5. What will I do in the next phase of my life? Or what do I want to do? So go ahead and journal a response to either what do I want to do or what will I do in the next phase of my life. So we did feel for question 4. Question 5 is doing. What will I do? And now go ahead and write your small, specific action step that will take less than 5 minutes, that is aligned with what you just wrote down as your answer to the question of, what do I do in this next phase of my life? Question 6, what do I know in this next phase of my life that I don't currently know? What do I need to know, or what do I know in this next phase of my life that I don't already know? Sometimes we think we know, but we actually don't. We think we know, and we're just not doing it. And this is hard, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. But I just want you to be really honest with yourself here, because if you knew it, would you already be doing it? So what do you need to know? Go ahead and write on that for about the next minute. All right, one specific action step. Remember, it's gotta be specific. It's gotta take less than 5 minutes. And hopefully it's something that you're excited to do, something that you will look forward to doing. Question 7 is, what is the plan, the stages, or the map to get to who I want to become? What are the stages or the map that will get me to who I want to become? And with this, we can either work forward or we can work backwards. If you know where you want to go, then you can look back to where you are currently, and you can reverse engineer the steps or the milestones that you need to make. And this will help you know if you're on track and if you're not on track. Okay, so with this, you want to look at the big picture of who you're becoming in this next year. Who are you becoming in 2019? And then try to break that into a few stages, a few steps. So, for me, I've got some personal goals, and I've got some goals professionally with the Fruitful Living course, with the Tidy Your Temple seasonal reset that I do, with the Labyrinth projects that I'm working on, and a couple books that I'm writing. And I want the personal goals and the professional goals to intermesh in a way that would be a breakthrough for me. So when I look at reverse engineering that, I see that there are some really specific steps that I need to take. For instance, it would be like one milestone for me, one sort of plot on my map would be to take some things off my plate and have them taken care of by other people. In my personal life, it might look like, okay, this thing is now a daily ritual in my family, or this is now a weekly ritual for myself in terms of time management or scheduling. So take a minute and see if you can identify some milestones. And I know that I know a minute is not long enough. None of this is long enough. But I wanted to give you a taste of this practice that you can take and use all year. All right, go ahead. All right, small specific action step. Number 8, how can I hold myself accountable? Or how can I hold myself accountable to the plan from question 7? You can start stream of consciousness, writing about that. I'm going to talk for a brief moment on different ideas about accountability. Personally, I put myself in situations with other people that have been through what I want to go through, right? They've been where they are where I want to go, or at least they are working toward going where I want to go also. I have found that to be the fastest way for me to get to where I want to go is to put myself in relationship, most often paid relationship, with the people who are farther along than me. Okay, I pay them to help me learn what they already learned. This tactic works, right? We use this tactic every time we sign up for anything, any training that you sign up for. So there are different ways to hold yourself accountable. Some of it also could just be through simple charting, just creating a tracking sheet. You can just use pen and paper to write out your own tracking sheet or print one off the computer. Tracking your own progress, putting it up on your refrigerator, writing on it every day. You go in your refrigerator every day. At one point, track your progress with whatever it is. But holding yourself to a higher integrity with your goals. One way you can do that is through tracking your progress, like charting it out. There's the partner method, where you help someone else stay accountable to their plan and they do the same for you. If you're looking for an accountability partner, one place that you can go to is the Umbrella community. That's a great resource. Whether you go onto the Servants Committed to Self-Care Facebook page and you ask on there, hey, does anybody want an accountability partner? Or you ask on the main Umbrella Facebook page. If you're in one of the courses, that's more built in. There's also, signing up for a course, like I just mentioned, signing up for a group, getting yourself a coach, whether that's me or another coach that can help you stay accountable to the plan, whatever the plan is. The plan could be related to your finances. It could be related to your physical health. So those are just some ideas. I'll give you another minute to write, and then write down your one action step that you can take to hold yourself accountable. All right, we've got 4 more questions. Before we finish up with the final 4, I want to talk real briefly about exactly how to use these. I touched on this earlier, but I want to go into it a little bit more so that you really get the full process. And then we'll go into the last 4 questions. So the one way that you could use this is to take one question and to use it for 1 week or to use it for 1 entire month. That was what I mentioned earlier. So there are 12 questions. So you could use 1 a month throughout 2019. The point is to use all 12 throughout the next year. So from now until January 1 of 2020, you want to have engaged worked with for at least a week all 12 of the questions. It's preferable to use the questions in the morning. All right. You can do it at the end of the day, but it's better to do it first thing in the morning. And what you're going to do is a 10-minute practice. So for 10 minutes every day, again, preferably in the morning. And you're going to take the first minute to do a breath clearing exercise. So for 1 minute, and if you need to set a timer for 1 minute. You're just going to focus on a breath clearing exercise. Could be one nostril breathing if you're familiar with that. Could be what we simply did at the beginning where we work with our exhale first and then move into deepening, lengthening out, matching up the inhalation and the exhalation, sort of wiping the slate clean with our breath for 1 minute. Then you'll set a timer for 4 minutes. And for 4 minutes, you just journal on one of these questions. So for the first minute, breath clearing. For the next 4 minutes, journaling on one of the 12 questions. When the timer goes off, you write your one small specific action to take that's going to take you less than 5 minutes. Based on what you just wrote, based on whatever you wrote for the 4 minutes. And then you take the remaining time, the last 5 minutes of this 10-minute practice to do that action. Now, sometimes more time might be needed than the 5 minutes. That might happen. If that happens, schedule in that time to complete the action into your calendar for that day, or maybe the following day, okay? Don't schedule it in beyond the following day. With specific small steps, right? Like super, super tiny to-dos is what we're going for. And what I want you to understand here is that your dharma, your call, your purpose is all about action. It's all about aligned action. It's less about the glorious time of visioning and journaling and sensing into. All of those things are important and they are necessary, but it is less about discernment through, prayer or journaling or talking to trusted, people who you trust. And it's more about taking action, taking specific action. Okay. How we change is to show up in the world. This has to be ingrained in the fabric of your physiology. It's all about taking that step, doing the small action that changes the course of your reality, the course of the world's reality that they experience of you. So that's the 10-minute a day practice. And I'll go into it a little more at the end, but let's cruise into question 9 now. Question 9 is, what needs to be redefined in my core relationships to become who I want to become or accomplish what I would like to accomplish? So again, that question is, what needs to be redefined in my core relationships to become who I want to become or accomplish what I want to accomplish? All right, one small specific action step to redefine or to define your core relationships. If you're not quite sure of what I mean by this, if you're changing, which no matter what, everyone is, right? Everyone is slowly shifting, whether you're doing it consciously or not. We're all changing all the time. Take a moment and think of your core community as a constellation, right? And constellations, they slowly, dynamically change and shift. Think of it as one star in the constellation begins moving faster, it shifts the entire constellation. And you are a star, right? You are one of the stars in that community, that constellation community. And so it's important for us to be conscious of how we are changing and how everyone is changing. And through that, we can become more clear. We can define better what we need and what others need in the next evolution of becoming more aligned with who we're called to be. So this is a skill that most people weren't raised with, myself included, and it's important that we pause and consider, what specific action step can I take to align my relationships with who I'm becoming? Okay, question 10. How do I need to use my time differently to become who I want to become? Again, that's how do I need to use my time differently to become who I want to become? Or said, more affirmatively, as some coaches, mindset gurus recommend, how do I use my time differently in this next phase of my life? How do I use my time differently? Deciding that it's already been done. Okay, and then one small action to align your time, to align your calendar, your schedule. Again, it's got to be doable. It's got to be simple. It's got to take less than 5 minutes. Question 11. How can I upgrade my home and or my workplace in support of who I am becoming? How can I upgrade my home or my workplace in support of who I am becoming? And now go ahead and write down one specific action that you can take in less than 5 minutes that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to do this. This needs to be done and I'm going to do it and it's going to take less than 5 minutes. Our final question, how can I upgrade my internal space? Body, mind, emotions. How can I upgrade my internal space to support the person I am becoming? Right? Just start writing. How can I upgrade my internal space to support the person I am becoming? And then one specific action that would take less than 5 minutes. All right, at this point, you have responses to 12 questions and you have 12 action steps that will take you about 5 minutes each, which altogether is 1 hour. It's like roughly 1 hour. You could, this afternoon or tomorrow or this weekend, you could go do them all and it would take you about 1 hour. But what I find more useful, because that's a lot, right? That list of 12 action steps, even though they shouldn't take more than 5 minutes, that could be totally overwhelming. What I encourage you to do is to make a daily practice of one question, one action step. And through doing the one question and one action, what starts to happen is you start to shift into deeper, more accelerated alignment. And it trains you toward taking action. And success rewards those who take action. Okay? People who are indecisive, who want to spend more time just thinking about it and don't take action, they don't evolve as quickly. I know that is an outdated, old pattern of mine. And that means when you fall and when you get stuck in that old, outdated pattern, that means that you don't help the whole in evolving as quickly, which means you don't have as much positive impact in your life as you could. You don't enjoy life personally as much as you could either. Which, when we go back to the concepts of dharma or call, it has everything to do with enjoying life and having a positive impact, with living a life that affects positive change in the world. And, we are all so privileged and blessed to be on this call today and to be able to take the time and have the access to the computer or the phone, to take the time to reflect, to use this cool interconnective technology. So what now? In this new year, what are you going to do with your life, right? That's the question of dharma, of call. What is the daily action that is most aligned with your potential? And so the 10 minutes a day, New Year's Day practice is designed to help you identify and to do that. So again, it's 1 minute of a deep breathing exercise, of a breath clearing exercise, to move you to a space that is more open and more expansive. And then you take 4 minutes to write. Just as I gave you about 1 minute to 2 minutes for each of these 12 questions, you would just pick one question and write on it for 4 minutes, stream of consciousness, and then use what you wrote to influence the action step that you're going to take for that day. That should take no more than 5 minutes. And again, the invitation is to use that same question, pick one of the 12 questions, and commit to using it every day until you are just over that question. And that might be 1 week, it could be 2 weeks, it could be a month. Okay, and maybe you look through this list of 12 questions tomorrow morning and you pick out, you might just go do the very first one. And next week, shift to number 2. Or next month, shift to question 2. Or you might pull out which question is the most gripping for you right now. Maybe it's question 9 that has you the most captivated. And so you're going to work with question 9 every morning for 1 week or 2 weeks or 1 month. What you're doing is you're training yourself to be an action taker. And remember that if it takes longer than 5 minutes, or if there is more that you want to work on, right? Say you identify your 5-minute action step and you do it, but then there's more that you want to do, you're going to schedule that for later that day, preferably. But the core of the practice is keeping it simple and taking action. Okay. I created an outline of what we've explored today. It includes the 12 questions and the practice and some other notes related to what I've said. I'm going to email it out to you all. You're free to share it with others, share it with your friends, with your church community, with your fellow yogis, with your coworkers, whoever. One other thing is that you want the questions and your responses and the action steps to live all in one place. Okay, so maybe you get a journal specifically for this daily practice, or maybe you create a document on your computer like a Google Doc or a Word doc, and you keep it all together as a way to see your progress and to help you hold yourself accountable. So I hope that was helpful for you. I'm able to stay on for a couple more minutes. If anyone has any questions or if you have any comments, I'd love to hear any responses. You can press *6, or you can just raise your hand. There's a little button, little hand symbol button down at the bottom, most likely, if you want to raise your hand. Or you can also visibly wave at me. If you don't have your video turned on, you can turn your video on. If you're calling in, you can press *6, and that will raise your hand next to your name. Okay, if you can also use the chat if you want to type something over in the chat. Again, if this workshop was helpful to you and you think that it would be helpful to others, pass it on. You can pass on the recording and the document that I'll be sending out later. Okay, any questions, any comments? All right, Sheila, yeah.
It was great. Since I'm a person who sits around in dreams, this has really taught me how important it is just to take action, and it doesn't take much. It only takes 5 minutes. So that's good. Thanks.
Yeah, great. Do you think, how does 10 minutes, how does doing this practice for 10 minutes in the morning, how does that sound to you?
Well, it's a good way to get oneself going. It really is, especially if you don't, like, I don't have to be at work. So, um, just kind of gets the ball rolling. It sets me on a course. So yeah,
Mhm.
I think it'll be useful. Quite
Wonderful.
so.
Awesome. Okay, well, I want you to check in with me throughout the year specifically about this practice. And for those of you listening, Sheila has been in the Fruitful Living course. So she, I know, has some, is practiced with some behavior change techniques using Kaizen, architecting your environment, focusing on 1% improvement, all those things that can help you make this a daily habit. Get out of the dreaming and start doing. Awesome. Thank you, Sheila. The cool thing with this is that when we have an action that's just so simple that we can actually do it, then we start to build a deep accountability with ourselves. Okay, because a lot of us, like, I want to lift up Sheila for saying, like, I'm a dreamer, and it puts me into a state of inactivity, essentially. A lot of us are out of integrity with our own vision of who we want to become. It's like we want to become that, and then we sabotage ourselves by maybe making things too hard. So what this practice is doing is it's making it so simple for you to take the next small step, which is important because every action has a reaction, right? So just doing a 5-minute practice or a 1-minute practice is enough to shift what you then do the rest of the day. Like, it'll change how you make decisions the rest of the day, which is the magic of this very, very simple practice. So I hope that helps. I am going to emphasize one more time before we depart the value of doing this every day, because again, your dharma is your life. Your purpose is your life. It's a dynamic principle, and it changes. Like, who you are tomorrow will be shifted from who you are today. So the action you take is going to be a little more refined. I really want to encourage you to experiment with using one question, the same question, every day for a little while. Because if you use the same question day after day after day, you're going to get a lot of traction in that, 14 days or 21 days or 30 days around that one question. Like, you'll have put, if you stick with one question each morning for a month, you will have put 30 actions into place for that one question. So the action, the specific action that you take tomorrow is going to shift and change and impact the rest of the decisions you make tomorrow and every day after that. And all you're doing is making a habit out of creating action. Okay, so if 30 days seems like too long to work with one question, you want to switch to a different, that's fine. It's up to you. But the key is that you do it, right? Is that we dream big, but then we also act. We dream and we do. So try it, see what happens. Let me know how it's going. I really love to hear responses. I get emails from people regularly and Facebook messages from people regularly. And it's amazing. If you're not part of the Facebook group Servants Committed to Self-Care, it's a free group that you can join. And I encourage you to join that group. That would be a perfect place to give updates on how this practice is going for you. Or you can email or private message me. Be on the lookout in 2019 for more free webinars. Coming up in a week, January 7th, is the next round of the Fruitful Living course. I can't tell you how excited I am for everyone who's already signed up for that 2019 annual pass to that course. There are 2 spots left. So if you're not familiar with it and you'd like more information about it, visit beumbrella.com, OMBRELLA. Click Fruitful Living. There's a short video about it. You can read a little bit about it. You can apply for it right there. And with that, again, I'll be emailing out this recording along with some notes. You're welcome to share. Love to hear how the practice is going for you. With that, Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you all. And I hope to be in contact with each of you soon. Have a blessed afternoon. Take care. Bye-bye.